I call the Township of Aleppo Legislative Commissioners meeting to order on November 21st, 2022 at 7 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
After our children on
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call.
President Jones.
Present.
Vice President Williams.
Present.
Commissioner Dara.
Present.
Commissioner Haluka. Present. Solicitor Stone.
Present.
Manager Patterson.
This meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube. We have a statement from Commissioner Haluka.
I just wanted to apologize to the people watching on the public. I have my cell phone on the table, which I normally don't. I have a brother that was in a pretty serious accident, so I don't want to be too far away from my telephone. So I'm sorry if I appear rude.
No, thank you and understood. Do I hear a motion to approve the November 14th workshop meeting minutes?
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Do I hear a motion to adopt the Act 57 of 2022 Property Tax Penalty Waiver Provisions Ordinance?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? Gwen, was it pretty well defined at the last meeting?
Dan had one question for Harlan about, how people are notified or are not notified about taxes.
Right, so I think Commissioner Dara's question was, if you attend a real estate closing and your taxes are prorated at the closing, you would know from your settlement sheet what your taxes were, so you would not be in a position to argue later that you didn't know. And I did look into that, and I think what I was told is that that may hold true for a lot of closings, traditional closings that are in a settlement office like Howard Hanna or Prudential, whoever it is, where there's actual, a formal closing is actually held. But I was told that there are other types of transfers that don't fall within that conventional closing model. And there are also transfers that occur through estates, transfers that are done outside closing. So you're right, it may be a tougher argument for somebody who's been at a traditional closing and gotten their settlement statement to argue that they didn't know. But there may be other groups who are affected in the transfer who aren't at a traditional closing that would fall into that group. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Makes sense, but it makes sense to me to address that issue by requiring that all deeds of transfer include a notice that taxes are due on the property.
I agree with you. I agree with you, but it's not optional, let's just put it that way.
And did we confirm that it's only for 1 year?
Yes.
Good. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Reports, Chief?
All right, good evening, everybody. For the month of October, we had a total of 54 calls. The majority of those were animal calls. We had one vehicle accident on Merriman, which no injury, deer versus car. It's hunting season. There's plenty of deer out, as you guys are all well aware. Just pay attention out there. Several suspicious vehicle and person calls, mostly towards the manor. All were unfounded except for one, and that was promptly dealt with. Other than that, relatively quiet month of October. Halloween went well enough. The only thing I would have to add to that is one of our other jurisdictions, and I've said this in many, many meetings, we've had 2 stolen vehicles just over the weekend. Vehicles were unlocked, keys were left inside. My detectives recovered both vehicles from within the city jurisdiction over the weekend. I would just shout out to the citizens, please lock your vehicles, remove anything that's valuable, and don't leave it unlocked with the keys in it. There are groups of people going around just looking to take your car. So other than that, I really don't have anything. Snow season's upon us, please drive safe. I think we've already been out once, twice. Welcome to Pittsburgh. Other than that, I don't have anything else, unless the council has anything for me.
And as always, anything we can do to help you?
As I said before, it's the suspicious people in person calls. You know, when you see something, you say something, we'll promptly address it.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Chief, thank you for your support with Halloween in the manor.
Yep.
It was safe, it went well,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful night. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Emergency management,
No report, all quiet.
public works,
Good evening. The spreaders are ready, the plows are ready, the trucks are ready. Actually, I have salt on order right now. That's about it right now, and unless you guys have some questions.
any questions for public works?
Thank you, Tim. I was amazed you had those salt trucks out there.
Communications,
I did not receive any,
planning and zoning, do I hear a motion to accept the proposal from HRG, et cetera?
So moved.
Second.
Good enough, Patty?
Yes.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Tax collector treasurer.
Well, good evening, everybody. You should have in your packets the treasurer and tax collector report for the month of October. No property taxes were collected, no delinquent real estate taxes were collected. Transfer tax was $2,793. Earned income for the month was $7,838.36. Local services tax was $933.35. No business privilege that month, and so grand total of taxes collected for the month of October was $11,564.71. Again, on pages 3 and 4, you can see the comparison between October of 2022 and October of 2021. Again, pretty similar, in the same ballpark. And then I also give you the 2022 year-to-date to the budget. As of right now, we're about $67,000 over with 2 months to go. So we are in good financial position to handle any obligations that we've had, and things like that. As far as the ending account balances, the PNC checking account, we have $324,098.38. And then our investment accounts, the state fund is $62,106.49. The general investment is $1,480,947.49. The reserve fund is $113,653.23. The capital improvement fund is at $960,730.23. So when you add all that up, it's $2,941,535.82. However, you have pledged funds, targeted funds, which needs to be subtracted out. So our net operating funds is $1,805,045.87. I also give you the ending account balances for the sewer bond account, which is at $683,840.53. And then the stormwater account is at $271,929.91. Any questions about any of the numbers?
Not the numbers. What is the schedule for the collection of local services and business privilege? Is it a regular basis or is it sporadic?
And that's sporadic.
Right.
So yeah, so one month they might collect a little bit more.
Do we know why?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I know that, I don't.
I'm gonna ask an incredibly naive question.
Sure.
What is local services tax?
It's the $52, I believe, that's charged to every,
$39 here.
$39 that's charged to every employee that works in the township.
So everyone who
Oh,
has
that's
a job
why.
in Aleppo Township,
Oh.
not just here, pays $39 a year. And then we, and I think it was in 2008, passed resolution, I think it was, to give 1/3 of that to the volunteer fire company. Because it's supposed to support local services like police, fire, things like that. And so we keep two-thirds of it in the township to help offset the police contract. And then 1/3 of it goes to the volunteer fire company as just a supplement to the
Very
contract
nice,
that we have with them.
I think it used to be called the occupational privilege
I
tax,
believe that is
Ah.
correct.
Okay.
and then they amended and
I'm
reformed it.
self-employed, that's why I don't know.
Right.
The City of Pittsburgh's $52.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions about the numbers or anything? Okay, well, the board has asked me, President Jones has asked me to kind of give a little financial update. Thanks so much to Gwen for all her help in helping putting this all together. So we just wanted to update the board as to where we currently stand, and obviously some things that are coming down the pike, and we just want to be aware of that. She wanted me to update you on just kind of the revenues, and Judy, this kind of gets into your question. The top 3 revenue sources for the township are obviously property taxes, earned income tax, and then the pilot that's through Masonic Villages. As far as property taxes go, I don't know if you're looking at the budget tonight for 2023, but right now there is no plan for millage increase. And so we have not had a tax increase since 2004, just to kind of let you know where the board stands. And so there have been several millage reductions since 2007, and which is now at the reduced millage, which have reduced the millage by 2 mills at the current rate of 3.5 mills, and that's been holding since 2014. So just to let the board know about that. Let's see, we're also monitoring the current Allegheny County legal action regarding common level ratio formula for assessments, things, and so it doesn't appear that there appears to present a negative impact to the township, but it's obviously going to be monitored as we keep moving forward with all of that. Earned income taxes, a lot of wage increases have been coming over lately, and things like that. So these wage increases have been slowly growing over the past decade, and the EIT collections have slowly grown to show these increases over the years. The Masonic pilot is an agreement with Masonic Village to be fair and reasonable, at a fair and reasonable rate, and is monitored when property taxes are made by Masonic that could affect the pilot. So if they do purchase new homes or new development over in that area, that could affect moving forward. The big thing, obviously, with expenses that we are all experiencing is obviously inflation. So if we're experiencing it, township's going to be experiencing as well. Asphalt seems to be a large portion, and I know we're thinking about doing some roads over the next couple years, so something to just kind of keep in mind. We've also set up the stormwater account to kind of handle some of those obligations that have been both not only federal but also state obligations, and so we need to make sure that we're in a position to handle all of that. So in conclusion, we will be moving funds from the general fund to the capital improvements and stormwater reserves in order to plan for some of those new expense pressures while maintaining a balance in the general fund that still exceeds the requirements of generally accepted accounting principles. So we are in fairly good shape moving forward, and I think we'll be able to handle our obligations. Hopefully nothing major happens, but we're in good financial position. Any questions with any of that? Well, thank you very much.
Very
Thank
good.
you, that's a lot of work.
Thanks.
Nice job. Thank you. Do I hear a motion to exonerate Clayton Stoop for collection of real estate taxes for 2021?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Gwen, very quickly, would you explain the exonerate?
Since Clay is the elected tax collector, even though we hire an outside company to do the tax collection, he is technically responsible for the collection of all the taxes. And at the end of the tax year, when Jordan Tax turns the delinquents over to our delinquent tax collector, you, the board, make a motion to fully exonerate him from the responsibility of collecting the balance of those taxes for each year.
Good. Okay. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Do I hear a motion in regard to the October bill list, et cetera?
Motion to approve the October bill list in the amount of $56,965.97, to ratify October prepaid bills in the amount of $30,884.42, And to ratify October payroll transfers in the amount of $16,529.72.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Presentation of 2023 budget draft.
Everybody's favorite. So, I have here the budget, the draft of the budget and the memo explaining the highlights of the budget. And I'll go over that for everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I'll just hit I won't read this entire thing, I'll hit some of the highlights. Revenues are going to be slightly increased, we're projecting some slight increases in some of the different categories this year. Property taxes went up a little bit, and so this budget increases the budget revenue by, or the property tax revenue by $35,000. What Clay had hit some of these points is that a couple years ago it was lowered to 3.5 mils, and we're not projecting to change that at all. The earned income tax collections increased a little bit, and so that budget has increased by $10,000. We've been slowly increasing over the last couple of years as I said, wages have increased, so we're trying to, we can expect a little bit more in that. Local services tax, we're not projecting to increase that budget at all, that's pretty much it's been steady the last couple of years, so we think that that's just similar numbers of people employed in the township, it's just that township area employed people haven't changed a lot. Interest earnings have picked up significantly in 2022. I've budgeted the income, it's $8,000 for 2023, which is most likely a conservative estimate, but that's, we think that they're gonna keep increasing, but we just don't know, so hopefully we're gonna collect more than $8,000, but it's better than the, $1,000 we collected in the last year, so it went. The big number that's gonna catch your eye is the transfer from other funds category, and so that one has two large numbers in it. $274,332 is budgeted to be transferred from the fund balance, which is the amount the 2021 audit shows as underspent from the 2021 budget. So it takes, by the time we have the audit, it's almost a 2-year lag between that and what we can plug into the next year's budget. My annual caution is that that number is not always guaranteed. We could have a year where we overspend our budget, and then there would not be a lump sum to plug in as a carry forward. But for now, if it's available, we just roll that money forward into the following, into the next year's budget to be used. Another transfer that you'll see in there is $500,000 coming in from the capital improvements fund. That is balanced out on the expense side by $500,000 that we're expecting to spend for paving in 2023. So we have a section of roads that we're gonna pave, we have some other roads that we're gonna do a tar and chip coat, and then this, the township building parking lot out here is scheduled to be replaced as well, because it's got some cracks and grooves that we just can't fill anymore. So we're gonna dig that out and replace it when we do paving. So it makes it look like we're bringing in all this money from somewhere else, and it makes our total revenue for the year be much higher than last year, but it's transfers in from other funds that are doing that. We are not suddenly collecting $800,000 in new revenue, it's just transfers into this budget. Everything else is generally the same, as adjusted for inflation and for things like that. Expenditures, also things pretty steady. We'll go through some of that. Salaries presented in this budget are increased at 4% in part due to the national inflationary pressures, and taxes and insurances were increased or decreased as appropriate, so those things balance out. Health insurance premiums did increase for the employees. We have 3 employees, well, right now 2, but 3 employees, full-time employees on the health plan. Legal fees are holding steady, and they were slightly under budget for this 2022, so they're gonna be budgeted at the same for 2023, and same with engineering fees. We budgeted $25,000 in the building category. Again, we didn't spend it last year, but that is for the potential replacement of the sewer line underneath the township building. We kind of are babying it, but we might get to the point where we need to jackhammer the floor and replace that line, so. The LST that we just talked about, that the contribution, a third of it goes to the Aleppo Township Volunteer Fire Company, so that's still in there. The capital outlay, the paving, the large paving project, we're looking at several roads. And so again, on this, now we're on the expense side, that should balance out the revenue, the transfer in revenue. So those things net out when you look at the budget as a whole. We have maintain a truck fund, which is a fund to help us replace equipment when the time comes without having to take a loan out for that. So we make an annual allocation to the truck fund, and because of the amount that we were underspent in the 2021, we have a little extra to put in the truck fund this year to prepare for when we need to buy the next dump truck, and the prices of those things are going up a lot, so we are smart to be adding extra money to the truck fund. And $200,358 has been allocated to the capital improvements fund, so that's money that, to balance out the budget, that's money that we're putting back into paving. So while we're transferring money into spend some paving, we're also allocating this year's allocation to the paving as well. It kind of crosses like that. Yeah, to the reserves, to the paving reserves. So those are the main highlights of the large numbers of the budget. And so if anybody has any questions tonight, obviously you just got it, so you might not have any detailed questions, but I'm available. It won't be adopted until at the December legislative meeting, so we have some time for you to look at it carefully and then get back to me with any questions you may have.
I do have one question. Is our employee increases predetermined by a vote that took place prior to me getting here? Is there a policy somewhere?
No.
Is there a?
It has traditionally been a 3% cost of living, and then in different years, different people have received perhaps merit increases or specific things because of a different kind of reason for a different year. But generally, no, there's not a set policy of what they should be.
So how did we arrive at 4% against the inflation, our current inflation rate?
Just through the budget conversation with the finance team.
Was there any consideration taken in to the current inflation rate?
Yeah, well, I can take that, yes.
I mean, this, you see where I'm.
Yeah,
I mean, we're running at a 3.7% deficit from the inflation rate.
we gave some assistance last year. I mean, we kind of agreed on 4%, that was both sides of the table.
Okay, I'm not familiar with the process. I was just looking at the inflation rate
I
and
think
the,
like Gwen said, the tradition has been a 3% cost of living. And we discussed the fact that there are inflationary pressures right now, so we increased it to 4%. We could certainly consider otherwise.
I just think it's worth a small discussion.
Is that an executive session discussion?
Probably.
So, not really. I mean, that's something that, it can be an executive session as a pre-decisional deliberation. And so, I take it back. You could consider this pre-deliberational, but, I mean, generally.
But then the amount, when there's a decision, it becomes public.
Well, and that has to be voted on or decided at a public meeting as part of the budget. But you can also have a budget workshop session if you want to discuss it in a workshop. Or you certainly can always discuss it, you can always discuss it publicly, that's your option.
An industry standard, as an example, your employer, are they making adjustments?
They did, we got 4%.
Yeah.
Even though
We
inflation
didn't
was 7.
just pull it out of the seat of our pants.
Oh, no, I'm not, and that's
No,
not, certainly not the accusation. I was just,
It's unfortunate that inflation is so high, but most industries right now are giving a little bump, but not a big bump. And in our discussions, it's been understood that that doesn't necessarily mean that it's now the standard. doesn't automatically assume that next year will be the same, might go back to tradition. But it was an open discussion agreed to on both sides, but the reason we're presenting this to the rest of you is if you have other ideas.
Is there, my questions aren't rhetorical, they're coming from not knowing, so,
Yeah,
is there another way to supplement or reward's not the right word, to supplement employees against a temporary inflationary increase? Like it's 7.7% this year, hopefully next year it's 3%. So I understand you would not, and I know how I did it for, my company, but, you wouldn't wanna do a 7% increase and then be stuck with that increase for the next 20 years whenever, the inflation rate's gonna be 3% next year. But I guess I'm asking, is there a way aside from hourly wage or salary to supplement that in the high environment that currently exists? Like it's springtime bonus or a Christmas bonus or I think you understand the question that I'm asking.
absolutely. Well, I don't know the answer formally. You certainly can give bonuses. I'm not sure how that works in the municipal world.
You can always give anybody you want to, I mean, not anybody you want to, any employee in good standing.
I'll take it hard.
I was gonna say, I'm getting in line for this one.
Yeah, I was gonna. Maybe
I like this
maybe the
attorney
legal
we have.
budget should be dropped a little bit based on that. Getting a little foggy. No, so yes, you can bonus people.
I think, not awkward exactly, but we have our 3 employees in the room.
Yeah, it is an awkward discussion. I think it is awkward.
But it doesn't bother me. What do the employees think?
Honest engine, not,
Am I to understand that instead of 3% this year, it's 4%?
Yes.
I look at it that's better than 3%.
Patty?
You just
I
got a
love this
raise.
guy.
Well, let's
I just
put it
love
this
guy.
way, I don't think anyone is going to say no to more. So, if you wanna do more than more, I don't think anyone's going to say no to that either.
Exactly. When?
Oh, that was very nice.
What she said.
What she said, that was well said.
Because we restrict them from taking, from taking any type of anything outside of their salary or what comes from the township, right? So they can't take, Christmas gifts from someone, or, am I correct?
Yeah, we don't accept gifts from residents or anything, or like, monetary gifts. If somebody wants to give us a gift card, we decline, or cash, we decline, we don't do that. From residents, like, we don't accept.
I think we can stop here. The 4% was both sides of the table.
Okay, that wasn't,
No.
I wasn't aware, okay.
There are certainly other options. I think you're thinking of some. Why don't you put together a proposal in your head, present it to us, I think openly,
Again,
Yes.
again,
at next workshop meeting.
yeah. Again, you have the option, if you want to discuss it out in an executive, you can, but you can always do it publicly. There's never an issue with it.
Oh, that's fine with me, I just didn't wanna make these guys uncomfortable sitting
And
around,
then
that's the only reason.
The second aspect,
asked.
aside from the fact that it was discussed on both sides of the table, I think we have some obligation to be consistent with industry standard. We have
Sure.
some obligation. So, all right, think about it. If you have a proposal in mind, let us know next workshop meeting. Or if anybody else has a proposal, except for Patty.
The wheels are turning.
I actually do have a couple of ideas, so, okay.
The only kicker is you have to pass the budget by the December legislative.
Well, I think we can make a quick decision.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, that's your only obligation.
Well,
The voice of reason.
that's another question I'm not sure about. If we, let's say we decided to give everybody a buck for a spring bonus, we can take that out of the general fund.
You can, if you decide to do something within the framework of the budget, you can do that. You can also make a motion at any time, you know, in January to transfer funds or allocate funds however you wish outside of the budget. It just needs to be a vote.
Then I think just to kind of summarize the financial situation, the reason we asked our treasurer to give an overview, we maintain more in our general fund by a significant margin than our accounting principles would demand. However, when we sat with the engineers and looked at asphalt, it's twice the price. We're having more and more obligations imposed upon us by the state for stormwater this and stormwater that, regulatory this, regulatory that. And we also are suffering the inflation rate, as are all the taxpayers in Aleppo Township. So I think we've always taken a conservative position. I think this was a conservative gesture, but we can certainly consider more, or less.
I'll let my spokesperson handle that one.
Definitely an executive session.
Well, Patty, you were so precise, I had to go back to something.
Well, the employees could call an executive session.
I know, right?
You assumed I was referring to more, didn't you?
It's really interesting.
Well, I wasn't sure at first, and then I kind of got the idea you were going.
It's really interesting sitting at this end of the table and seeing the ping pong going back. Smoothly too.
Okay, I think we can let it at that, and we'll discuss it at the workshop meeting. Good point. Aleppo Township Authority.
I'm told that the authority is discussing with the nature center hooking into our sewer system, as well as the trap property on Redgate.
Good.
Hasn't been finalized yet, but it's in discussion. That's it.
Quaker Valley Cog.
Successful 50th anniversary, successful open house. We had a number of people from Aleppo
Good.
that came over, so it was great.
Ambulance authority.
Sorry,
That's okay.
Oh, I knew I was
You
going in the
got
right order.
skip one.
No, I skipped you, you skipped.
So the Quaker Valley Cog, we have a motion?
Not finished the report. Other than what's in the
You want to make the motion?
motion to send a letter to the state representative, Gaius, requesting a reintroduction of the House Bill 955, amending Title 45 of the Pennsylvania Consolidated Statutes, allowing municipal legal notices to be advertised on municipal websites.
Is there, okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. So back to Quaker Valley Ambulance, nothing, 50th,
No, 50th was fine.
good. Mr. Solicitor,
No report. Unless you have questions, obviously.
unfinished business, the deer culling, no feeding ordinance.
I put the ordinances back in your packet. Last week, there was a discussion for the board to read them and see if there was one that they preferred, and Harlan had recommended one over the other. I think it was I forget which one, but I'll look back on that one. So one of them was recommended over the other one. I think the Franklin Park one was recommended.
I think the Franklin
Yeah.
Park one
Didn't
was,
present the affirmative defense.
right, didn't include an affirmative.
So if I recall, when we left the conversation at the last meeting, there seemed to be a willingness to consider one of these ordinances.
That was my sense, there would certainly the no deer feeding ordinance.
So So would someone like to make a motion in that effect?
I move that we have the solicitor prepare an ordinance with regard to no deer feeding in the township, and we review it at the next workshop meeting.
And did we want to stipulate, I think I recall, we don't want to have any unnecessary residents going to the magistrate. I think you suggested a sentence in there that gave some time between a violation and the magistrate.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'll make sure that's in there.
The option to
It's-
correct
it's
the,
in
to
The
correct
option-
the problem without,
Yeah.
In the
Yes.
ordinance, you do get a
yeah.
one-time warning.
You do.
Because I think several commissioners and the solicitor said the major issue here is enforcement.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and even if we're truly willing to take our residents to the magistrate for feeding deer, I think we really have to look at if we're willing to do that, before we put an ordinance in that we may or may not be willing to
I think
enforce.
the way the ordinance should be written, it should be any resident of the township can file a complaint with regard to feeding deer.
And I think the one ordinance does have you have so many days after receiving your violation notice to cease and desist. And if it goes beyond that period of time, and this is what I think Commissioner Jones was talking about, if it goes beyond that time and you're still found to be doing it, then we don't need to send you a second notice. You're still in violation. You haven't remedied the violation.
I guess my only hesitancy is people using, I know this sounds like somebody ate my Milky Way, but,
Vindictive.
yeah, people using it vindictively without a clear definition. For example, there's a couple families in the back of the manor who have large bird feeders, and they leave those bird feeders out during the winter and the deer get them. Their neighbors call that feeding the deer. They call it, the deer get my bird feeders. And I don't think the township wants to be in this, we're taking you to the magistrate because somebody, you know. I mean, then do we need a feeding the raccoon ordinance because the raccoons ate the lady's deer, you know, the lady's
Well,
bird feed as well.
what you're talking about is what happened in McCandless, I'm told. That's why their ordinance is a little different from Franklin Park's. Because in McCandless, they did have people who had bird feeders, and that was one of the complaints was, hey, we have bird feeders, we're not feeding deer. And so their ordinance, I think, is why you got that affirmative defense stuck in there, because there were residents with exactly that concern.
Yeah, I just don't think as a township, we want between the, you know, there's a whole I love deer people, and there's a whole I hate deer people, and there's a whole I don't care about deer people in the middle. And I don't think the township wants to be in the middle of, you know, well, fine, I can't put my salt block out for the deer, I'll buy a big bird feeder. And, do you know what I mean? That's my concern, is that we're gonna be, Gwen's gonna be getting phone calls about, is it deer feeding, or bird feeding, or raccoon feeding, or squirrel peanut feeding, or,
We're in that situation with lots of things that go on in the township. Where you have people on one side of an issue and on the other side of the issue, and we have to take some action to resolve it.
such as,
I have a question. What caused Franklin Park and McCandless to pass these ordinances?
So something similar to what's going on in Glen Osborne right now, which is you have some, like you said, some residents who love the deer, and they love having the deer come up to their window or their door, and, you know, there's no such thing as one deer. So now you've got a
and you have
herd.
those of us that don't wanna feed our landscaping to do that.
And then a situation arises where, because of the deer, now other types of vermin, like raccoons, get attracted to the food, and you end up with really having a potential health hazard at those locations.
So we had the cat issue that we're still dealing with.
You had the cat issue. So, but my point is, I think to Commissioner Dara's point, you will even if you have an ordinance, you will always have enforcement discretion. And in those difficult situations, you instruct the code officer, this is what you want him to do. You want him to go talk to the resident first. Then if the resident doesn't listen, then you want to send a warning letter. So you can control the aggressiveness of the enforcement based on the discretion that you give to your zoning officer.
I
And
think
we do that,
It
and we
just
do
has to
that.
be important that discretionary space is defined some way. Because I can hear, there's an ordinance, why aren't you enforcing it? My neighbor's feeding the deer, and they're saying, well, you feed the cats, what is the difference between feeding the deer and feeding the cats? And you answer the phone calls, Glenn, so I mean,
I see what you're saying. I see the potential for what you're saying.
I think it is true that feeding the deer is harmful to the deer.
oh, absolutely.
That's number one.
I don't think we're debating that at all.
And my second question would be, does the prevention of 1 or 2 deer feeders really control the deer population? I don't think so. They're gonna eat the grass and Judy's shrubs. So I think the reasoning behind the ordinance is perhaps as vague as the enforcement of the ordinance. Because it really doesn't control the deer population,
Well,
but it is harmful to the deer.
and it does give the board some political cover, because the people who are most concerned about the deer are the ones who are gonna be calling Gwen and saying, what are you doing about this problem?
But there's gonna be just as many calling Gwen saying, how dare you tell me what I can do in my yard with my bird feeders?
I mean,
I'm
I'm just the lawyer, you're the
I mean, you've been in
legislator.
the middle of all of this for
It's
many,
a
many years.
compromise with regard to people on the far side that wanna have a deer culling ordinance where we're out in the neighborhood taking down the deer.
Well, we can't do that,
No, but there are some people who would like us to do that.
Yeah, Commissioner Luca, I think Commissioner Dara is correct. Any ordinance is gonna have a vagueness to it and an interpretive aspect. But your point's well taken, so let's proceed with the solicitor drawing up an ordinance. Once we see that ordinance, and if by chance you could get that to Gwen prior to the meeting, a couple days before, and we all have a chance to look at it. But I think we started this conversation in detail when we received 2 letters about deer problems.
about the request to call deer, yeah,
Right.
yes.
And so this is kind of a compromise, but the purpose of the ordinance and the enforcement of the ordinance are still not clear in my mind.
And you'll still have time to talk about it, because if we just get it in December, we don't have time to advertise it to adopt it in December, so.
No.
Get it
Yeah,
in
you
December,
do.
you still have time to discuss, we wouldn't be adopting till January at the earliest.
Well, you don't have to, but I mean, you only need, on a normal ordinance, you only need one week of
But if
publication.
they only see it and want to do that
They should,
by the workshop, then we won't be able
Mr.
to.
Solicitor, would you do me a favor?
Sure.
Would you find out how many violations have been enforced on McCandless and Franklin Park?
oh, yeah, sure.
Oh,
That's a good idea.
excellent question.
Demand. All right. Any further discussion? Any new business?
We need to vote.
Do that,
Oh,
thank you. We have Dan as the motion, I don't know if we have a second to,
Oh, sorry.
to prepare the ordinance.
is there a second?
It's not hard to second.
Oh, got
We've
it.
had lots of discussion.
Right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. New business.
No new business, but just a comment that there has been a noticeable reduction in our cat population at Masonic Village. And they have softly discouraged any of the people in the retirement living in particular, because that's where the woods are, to knock that stuff off. But they've been feeding them really, really well for quite a long time. After the original lady passed away or left, I'm not really sure which. That's when it really seemed to blossom.
We have had the situation on Nancy Drive, which feeds into that one, they've had some success at capturing some of the
Right.
main breeders, and the township has reimbursed for, I think, 2 stray removers at this point, so
Do we still have available funds?
do you have a little bit of available?
Yeah, I've seen them up there 2 times,
Yes.
but sometimes I just pull them in Nancy Drive to see how many cats I can see. And well,
Cat patrol.
no, I'm just curious, and I've seen people helping.
Now you have to count the deer. Now George.
I don't have to go too far, they're in my backyard.
Yeah.
All right, any other new business? Any other citizen participation? Is an executive session required?
Not unless you desire one.
I know of none. Therefore, we're adjourned.